The dish we're doing is an eggless egg salad. This is one of my favorite dishes. It's made with tofu and it's perfect as a side dish. It's a great salad to take on picnics and it's perfect as a sandwich filling as well.
I love this dish so much. Now I know, Colleen, that for this dish, well, it's based on tofu. And we're going to be using a firm tofu or an extra firm tofu. Now I think there's so many tofus out on the market, firm tofu, extra firm, soft, silken. There's so many out there, and I think it's really confusing for people. So could you please shed a little bit of light on the subject of tofu?
I would love to shed light on the subject of tofu. I love tofu. And yes, you have extra firm, you have firm. There's not a lot of difference in the texture between firm and extra firm. So I would categorize your firms and extra firms together and your soft and silken tofus together as well. So for this dish in particular, we're using firm because we want it to still have texture, and that's when you want to use firm tofu, when you want it to keep its shape. So when you're using it for a barbecue skewer, when you want to grill it, when you use it for stir fry or saute, that's when you basically use a firm tofu so that it keeps its shape.
Now I suppose something like the silken tofu, the soft tofu, these are the tofus that you're going to be using when you want to blend the tofu. Now I love making desserts. And one of my favorite desserts is a chocolate mousse, for which I use the silken tofu. As the name would imply, silken tofu has a beautiful, luxurious texture. It's velvety, it's gorgeous, and it's perfect for desserts like puddings and mousses and pies and all those yummy, wonderful things. Now, soft tofu, silken tofu are also great for dressings, again, where you're blending the tofu to get that velvety, rich, lovely texture. So those are the soft and the silken.
Right. And you can also freeze firm tofu, and when you do so, you actually create a very meaty texture. It changes the texture of the tofu completely. It's much chewier than if you didn't freeze it.
Right. Now, when you freeze, just to be clear, we basically take the package, throw it in the freezer, and we leave it there overnight or for a few extra days if we want to. We pull it out, and then we've got our frozen tofu.
Exactly.
Easy peasy.
You can leave it in longer than a few days as well.
Right.
And it's something that will last in the freezer a very long time.
Great.
The other thing you can do with firm tofu, and don't do this with silken tofu, is you can press it. And you press it because you want to get some of the water out of the tofu. And in doing so, you actually leave space for another flavor, another marinade to be soaked up into the tofu.
Right.
And it's very easy to do. You just take your block of tofu, and why don't we take this out of the package at this point?
Are you ready for your bowl?
I am. Why don't we do that, Alka? And the example for the pressing would just be that you would take this block, you would wrap it in a towel, you would put something very heavy on top of it, like some books or a pot or some cans of tomato sauce, and you would basically press it for about a half hour, not very long. And when you're done, you've basically gotten rid of some water, and now it will absorb any flavor you put into it.
Terrific.
So for this dish,
the eggless egg salad.
My hands are all wet. You could just crumble this with your hands. You can also mash it with a fork. You can mash it with a potato masher. And basically you just crumble it into the bowl. I'm just going to use my hands.
I like that. Yeah, I like using fingers. It's nice, sensual working with food.
It is.
Okay, so you've got the crumbled tofu in there. Now what we're going to be doing is adding all of the dressing ingredients that are right here. And you can see how beautiful they are. And you can vary these vegetables per your enjoyment. Whatever you like, you can add. The very first ingredient that we're going to be using in our dressing is this lovely eggless mayonnaise. Eggless mayonnaise. Now there are a lot of eggless mayonnaises out there on the market. There's mayonnaise. Now that's not mayonnaise. I'm saying mayonnaise, made by, I believe, Nisoya. And it's a beautiful mayonnaise. There's also veganaise. Now this here, it's something different. What is it, Colleen?
This is something called garlic aioli, and it's made by Wildwood. It's so delicious. I think it's the best one out there, personally. It's my favorite. It also happens to be my husband's favorite. I often come home finding evidence of bread having been dipped into the aioli and
in the jar,
empty jars around the house. It's very dangerous food to have around. It really is fantastic, and you
Sounds like an addiction.
It is. It's a problem. You'll have to talk to him about it, but it's something you really can just dip vegetables in and use it as a dip as well.
So tasty.
It's so delicious. A really strong garlic taste. So we just add this to our tofu. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
It's my fault. Now that's our first dressing ingredient.
Yes.
And now we just put everything else in.
That's it. It's that simple.
Okay,
and we've been talking a lot, and it would take a lot less time for you to do this in your home if you didn't have someone standing next to you talking all about garlic aioli.
Yeah, well, you know, it's something that we like to talk about.
Obsessing over garlic aioli.
That was relish.
relish.
Not garlic aioli.
No.
This is mustard.
Mustard and some garlic aioli.
Okay, now we've got some chopped onions. Lovely. Scallions, actually.
Scallions, green onions, same thing.
And here we have some carrots.
Great, thank you.
Beautiful red peppers. Love the color here. Again, a gorgeous, colorful dish. A feast for the eyes and for the palate. We have some celery.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And then some cilantro or parsley.
I believe it's parsley.
It looks like parsley.
It tastes like parsley. It smells like parsley.
And it's parsley. And these are onion granules. You can also use fresh onion as well, just chopped up.
Or any kind of minced onion, really.
Minced onion,
will
onion
work
powder.
too.
I say onion granules. Onion powder is just fine as well.
This is garlic.
Garlic, same thing. You can also use just fresh garlic. It's just a lot faster, as you can see, if you just use the ground.
Terrific. Wonderful salt and pepper.
Yum. And you should
Yum.
probably salt to taste. I'm just going to hold back a little bit on the salt. There's some salt in the garlic aioli as well, so we
Right.
probably don't want to put too much salt in. Alka, could you talk a little bit about tempeh while I put the turmeric in?
Absolutely. Well, in addition to what Colleen has already said, the tempeh is more of a natural product compared to the tofu. It's less processed. It is made with soybeans. Now, tofu is soybean curd. Tempeh is fermented fermented soybeans. And so it's a really lovely product. A lot of people find that it's easier on their digestion than tofu. But of course, both products are really great because they're high in protein, high in isoflavones coming from soybeans. Now, I use tempeh primarily in vegetable pot pies. I like to cube up the tempeh, marinate it, and then toss it in with a bunch of vegetables. Bake those in the oven, and it's a nice little meat substitute that way. Has that chewy texture, which is very satisfying.
Yum.
Of course, people can grill tempeh as well after marinating. You can bake tempeh. All kinds of options with tempeh.
Great. And the last ingredient we're adding, now you don't have to do this in order at all, but the last ingredient we're adding is turmeric. And this is a wonderful spice that will add the yellow color to the eggless egg salad. And just be careful you don't add too much because it can be very bitter if you add too much.
Right.
And that's it. It's just so easy and so delicious.
Now, something to keep in mind here, we started with the tofu, crumbling the tofu, and then we added all the dressing ingredients. Now, that dressing by itself, if you aren't so fond of tofu, you can put that dressing over, for example, cubed steamed potatoes for a nice potato salad.
Yes.
You can put the dressing over macaroni for a macaroni salad. Now, you like using chickpeas.
I
Is
do.
that true?
Chickpeas or garbanzo beans. I like doing it. It actually tastes kind of like mock tuna, which is really good. So
Yeah.
it's a very versatile dish. All the
Exactly.
ingredients are versatile. Now the turmeric isn't showing up right away. It'll become absorbed into the ingredients and it turns yellow. And maybe we can show everybody what a
Absolutely.
final plate looks like.
Here it
this
is.
delicious eggless egg salad. Isn't
So
that
pretty.
gorgeous?
And it's so tasty.
It's so beautiful. It really is my absolute favorite dish.